Hello! Today we're going to be doing basically a knockoff of wicso, but with a hyper-realistic world map. Now, I may put this map in the link in the description if anybody wants to use it, but basically what you do is you have the main layer, which is just the entire map. What you do is you just go to the magic wand tool, select the tolerance to something like this. Now, you set this to this one, and you basically select the oceans, and then you copy paste them here. But you will need to do it multiple times to also do it for these greenish regions, greenish blue regions, basically. Otherwise, it's gonna look really weird and janky. But yeah, that's around the jig of it, and I kind of forgot a thing or two here and there, but that's whatever. It's not the end of the world. It's gonna be fine anyway. It's just some seas. Okay, anyways, let's get into it. So, we're also gonna be doing spin the wheel for the first country. Well, region, and then country. So, let's see what we get. What do we get? Poland! Oh, now that's an interesting one. That's an interesting one, my bad. Done, yeah, whatever. Okay, now we just color in the country. Let's start with this dark reddish color. Yeah, dark reddish color, I guess. Let's change the size down to smaller. Now, I think we're gonna mainly do coast, like right around here. Right layer? Phew, yeah, it's the right layer. So this is gonna be our first civilization in this massive world. Now, we're gonna do the same thing again for a second civilization, but that's gonna be later, just so y'all know. But anyways, let's, which country should we do next anyway? I don't know, let's just expand this one. So immediately off the bat, the small civilization that's been here is basically just a tribe, and they're just chilling, existing basically, trying to fish for food. That's why they're huddled around the coast too. Most countries right now haven't really discovered much of agriculture. I mean, I guess they could have maybe discovered agriculture, but I wouldn't think so. Dang, tough one. They haven't yet. So that's why they're all going to be huddled around the coast. But I think next episode they're probably going to be more so able to finally figure out agriculture as a whole. So yeah, let's just expand the red country a little bit along the coasts. So yeah, I think this is a little bit too quick actually. Why am I losing my voice at the worst moment ever? Let me just figure out. Yeah, I think this is actually good, considering before I feel like it was too much. Now, after their expansion, I think they may start going inwards, mostly towards these darker areas, which I presume are most likely forests. Yeah, they seem to be forests based off their locations. So, some of them go inwards, towards the forests. And they continue going through them. Not going directly in the forests, but huddling here. So basically, here's a new settlement that's been established. It's actually looked a little bit smaller because too big, way too big. So they go down here, they go through here, they establish a small settlement, and then they keep on going. Now, obviously, this is over the course of a pretty long while, so even though this may seem quite quick, this is actually over the span of a few days. So, yeah. This is around the state where they are now, so far. And due to this being so far away from this, these guys start slowly separating more and more. Now we're just gonna basically use this color to reflect on the fact that they're basically far away settlements and they aren't really that centralized after all, especially this one here. So basically these guys don't have much control over this, except for maybe this entrance here into these tribes that have now been established. Now, the first split away has arrived, and obviously it's going to be blue. The first split away is going to be right on over here. Considering they're the furthest away from these guys over here, I would like to presume that probably over here is where the next civilization is going to start up. And they immediately go on their first exploration, finding lots and lots of new fields. And eventually, around this time, since they're closing in on lots of fields, some of them would most likely discover, oh, we can actually farm stuff, and it would start spreading around like wildfire, reaching back to this civilization. Now, while this is all going on, another civilization has risen, one right over here. Actually, sausage country, let's do it a little bit smaller here. Yeah, this works actually. I feel like the next civilization is going to be right here because here's a big hub, but after all, this is pretty close, so maybe not too. Now, before we continue onwards, I think what we should probably do is make a new layer. You may be wondering, for what purpose shall we need a new layer? It's going to basically be to reflect on where the most important hubs are, but we're going to have to lower down the opacity for these, so they're all just going to be white dots, basically, considering there's not going to be a white country. So let's do one right over here. I feel like that's a little bit awkward, so let's do a little bit more over to here. I feel like I'm speaking quite quietly, but in editing this is probably going to be quite a bit louder, so yeah, it's just bugging me that it's probably going to be quite quiet. Just a warning before we go on, I seriously am praying that I won't mess up. And what I mean by mess up is that I'm going to start coloring on the fourth layer, causing myself to have to erase everything and then put it on this layer. Well, actually you can copy and paste, but that would still be quite concerning if it did happen. Okay, hold on for a second. Boop. Boop, boop, and boop. That's good. Okay, now, let's finally focus on the green country, actually, because we haven't done that whatsoever. By the way, this color is actually occupied territory color. This one's going to be for later. And I'm using a lighter color right now so that it seems more defined, because this is going to be an invasion color, since Addis Pro uses something similar, so I'm going to do that too. But yeah, now let's focus on these little green boys. Wait, is it gonna like... Oh, no, it doesn't stain. Okay, that's good. Anyways, now let's just color in these territories right here. Now, eventually, finally, agriculture spreads to these guys via here. They suspect that this is the most efficient path, but this is an actually very important trade route, as trading has finally started, and so is this. But the blues go through here, around here, and eventually, shockingly, reach the green civilization. Now, before being hyper-aggressive, they actually go up, decide some merchants should go there instead of anything related to a military. So they do accept. So the merchants go there, trade a few things here and there, and officially, after a while of this, a new trade route is established, going through here. Which is pretty good for this country, as this could cause this red country over here, which has influence over these regions, to have less power, causing them to not be able to abuse their power over these two, so that they would have a harder time trading with each other and be forced to trade with this country. But since this new trade route has developed, these two countries are now actually having a pretty good situation. I'll be right back. My bad, had a little thing that I had to do. But now I'm back. Let's keep going with the thing. Actually, I'm gonna do... Wait, Weird. Okay, fair enough. So now, let's focus up on the green country a little bit more, because they haven't really gotten much screen time so far. I mean, they're on screen, but we haven't done much with them. Now, the green country, believe it or not, since they're the ones that majority of their stuff is in the forests, they would like to try to go deeper and see what's there. And this actually happens a lot slower. They take over around this much in a month, because there's not that many people actually joining in on this, because they think that it's going to be dangerous over there. But as they continue going through, they realize that it's not that bad, and expansion continues further and further. Now, the green country has expanded all the way to over here. And this is where they pause, because they realize that, hold up, this blue country, they notify to the blue country so that they can also expand and advance the trade route. And this, oh no. This influence territory decides, you know what, yeah, let's do the same thing as them. And so, this entire forest that was once a huge danger zone, it has now completely been encompassed by these other countries. And so, once this has happened, these green lads over here decide, you know what? Since the red boys over here have some coast, we'll probably presume that there's most likely coast here too. But they don't completely know that, so they think it's around something like this, considering they would assume that it just keeps going up until like somewhere over here where they have literally no knowledge of what's here. So, they decide to go north. And eventually they do reach the coast. Now, at first they're super ecstatic about this, but then they realize barely any of us know how to fish. What's fishing? But yeah, literally almost none of them knew how to fish, so the few people that actually knew how to fish in this country, which I'd already given up on that, had to teach the younglings how to fish so that this would actually be beneficial in some way. Now, these two countries decide, hear me out, that they should establish a hub over here so that these two could trade more efficiently, considering this and this is kind of inefficient. So, they establish a new trading hub, right, plop over here. I should probably lower this layer's opacity, but I'm too lazy. But yeah. Oh my god, I keep using the wrong friggin' color. Let's lower this back down to 2. But yes, these 3 countries have all expanded somewhat, but this red country has lost a lot of its focus actually, so let's have them at, oh my, tolerance jump scare. But yeah, this country over here expands a little bit so that they can achieve more influence over these regions. But the green country kinda, sorta, maybe a little bit feels threatened by this. And some civilians, there's not any real established borders, but there are some lines that have been made. Basically, with agriculture advancing a lot over the past few months, these guys accidentally fenced off these 2 pieces of land and proclaimed them as theirs. And once these guys noticed that, they were like, hold up, wasn't this supposed to be ours? And so, the people in these regions slowly started getting upset with each other over this and started arguing. The arguments turned into full-on fist fights, and from fist fights to actual battles, and that's how these 2 countries went to war. But since neither of them were really prepared for it, and hadn't actually done much to prepare at all, the Red Country formally decrees that they're going to annex these regions and then declare war on this country over here. So, eventually, the plan happens, and this country over here immediately attacks them by the coast, because that's where more of their population is, and that's where they have most of their troops stationed, except for maybe over here where they also do an attack. Now, there isn't really much strategy, they just rush across all regions, but since some regions have an abundance of troops, that's how spearheads start forming. And they slowly but surely start encompassing more and more regions. So, they eventually win over all of this territory up north, and even capture the trading hub. However, due to these countries not being very centralized, they still have a sizable fighting force, as the quote-unquote countries that these are actually just tribes that have become more unified over time. So, eventually, an attack finally gets formed by the other team over here, which encompasses most of this territory over here, which causes a minor issue for the Reds. A lot of their troops are kind of trapped. They attempt to somehow save those troops, and the troops also try to save themselves by them going over here and trying to reconnect, but this costs them lots and lots of men, so they eventually have to retreat out and rest for a little while and regroup and stuff. Meanwhile, up here, the Reds have continued their attacks up until around here where the forest actually begins. Well, kinda, there's some small regions which are forested. And the Reds also finally, after ages of not doing anything much in expansion towards unclaimed territory, quote unquote unclaimed, it's just such small tribes that they're basically non-existent. So, over time, the Green Country also decides to do the same as the Reds, without actually knowing that the Reds are doing this. So, this leads to the battle that I will refer to as the Battle of Discovery. And the Reds come victorious because they were the first to start this, and eventually over time they became more dedicated to it, so the push was relatively successful. So, eventually, Blue Country sees all this fighting, and for some obscure reason, a single few guys in this decide to fully occupy the city. I think it was the Greens part. I have horrible memory, so wish me luck in actually remembering that. So, thankfully, yeah, I'm not paused. Whew! Thank the Lord I'm not paused. But yeah, basically, this Blue Country eventually decides, hear me out, they're getting kind of tired of this, as they continuously have fighting, and just their own people are kind of listening in on this stuff, and they're getting kind of tired of constantly hearing battles and stuff going on near their borders and stuff. And eventually, a few little red guys decide to do some trolling, but they forget to go around and instead go straight through blue territory, which officially becomes occupied. Well, not really officially in this day and age, but you know what I mean. To get to this, they decided to go through a different route that they didn't realize was part of the blues. Y'all can also each come up with names for these, considering I have zero clue. So, eventually, this single thingy gets taken. However, due to heavy presence of the Greens, they eventually push back, accidentally also occupying the same blue territory. So the Blues also join in, because you know what happened over here. Basically, the whole same thing that started this war starts the one between the Reds, Greens, and the Blues. Basically, three-front war. Well, actually, just a tri-country war. So, immediately, since the Blues are not exhausted by this war because they weren't even in it, they actually have the most strength to push. So they immediately go ahead and take a large portion of Red's territory up until this, and they eventually pull the same maneuver. But since the greens still hold on to the settlement, they have a relatively good spot to defend. But the blues, since they have rested pretty well, are now playing insanely aggressive. Well, not playing, but, you know, battling really aggressively. So, eventually, green gets squashed. So this side, let's hold out here for as long as possible. Now, one small thing to mention. The green boys are relatively unhappy about what's going on. The remnants, at least. So, after the successful occupation of the greens, this country realizes that it's still at war with this one. So, they continue fighting it out. Also, let's lower down spacing, considering I hate spacing, but yes. And as the greens, no wait, blues, my bad, keep attacking and pushing, they eventually encircle a city, well, settlement. Let's just, yes, still red. Oh yeah, and the greens are still holding out here, so the blues have that on their hands too. I think there's actually a vague green tint for this. Oh yeah, there is. So I'm pretty sure the opacity, yeah, the opacity isn't actually completely 255. It's actually 191, surprisingly. But let's get on with the video, considering I don't want to bore you guys to tears with this. So the push continues, and the blues form a spearhead. Obviously, this is because of high troop concentration and not really much strategy involved. But yeah, they acknowledge, because they actually held this, and they would be able to almost see the settlement. They saw some other things that signaled that there was a settlement, so they attempted to push here. Now, of course, their sense of direction was pretty bad, but they did have landmarks here and there, so they had some knowledge. So, they keep on going, and they keep on going up, and they eventually start besieging their main settlement. Shockingly, the blues come out on top in this, but the reds are still holding out intensely, and finally they get to reconnect with one of their main settlements. And next, another falls. Due to the blues putting so much pressure and being so aggressive, they've sustained huge amounts of casualties, causing them to have severe number issues. So they get significantly overwhelmed eventually, and at the siege, they lose even more troops. So, due to this, the greens have realized that they have a chance to rebel. So they eventually finally push out after their long hiding in this one settlement that the blues have by now definitely stopped besieging. And since the greens have especially much experience in going along the trees, they also eventually recapture all their lost settlements that they once held. And now it's the blues on the losing side. But the greens have long now probably had some manpower issues. Well, manpower is a rough term, it's just how many people they can recruit. But yeah, they don't really have that many men that they can recruit, because now assimilation processes had already started. So the green team doesn't really have that many men. They need more men. The blues go here, realizing that there's basically no saving grace for them. While the blues are doing that, the greens do it, but a lot more slowly over time. So the three are still at war, and now the main thing to wonder is who is gonna win. Now, the reds decide to go communicate with the greens for peace talks, realizing as though they probably do not have the strength to continue this war for much longer, and neither do the blues. The only ones that can actually withstand either of them is the greens. But they also realize this war is kind of costing us a lot of resources, and it's not really benefiting us much. So they decide to all agree to peace out there. And for the blues, this is the biggest loss. And also, for the Greens, pretty big loss, I feel like. But yeah, the Greens have completely lost all their coastal access, but over time, before the peace treaty is signed, they swiftly rush over and take over this entire coastline for themselves, and peace is established. So, after this new peace has been established, they decide to each go their own ways, and the Greens immediately go for the forests once again. They now have around 500 experience points, all directed towards climbing trees. I'm so sorry, that is a complete joke. But yeah, the Greens are the most fitting and suiting for the forests, as they've lived there for basically their entire existence. But there is also claims. But as this has just recently been claimed, and probably everybody already left that to go somewhere else, the Reds claim it, and nobody really cared. So this time, no war over small territory. And the Blues are the ones that are going to be expanding inland the most because of huge sacrifices. They eventually occupy an entire forest. Well, forest area, considering. Gosh dang, these are some big forests, not gonna lie, but yeah. They're having a lot of fun doing this. Especially, they need a lot of troops after what has happened. And Green eventually reaches the coast. Now, obviously, I don't think they would reach it that fast. And by the time they would, the Reds would have already occupied quite a bit. So, this is going to be what we're going to draft up. And now, here's the issue. Red can no longer expand, because every single freaking land route that has been found is now missing for them. So the only way they can expand is by going settlement to settlement with merchants, and then the merchants go somewhere completely random and establish another settlement that's technically theirs. But by that time, that settlement's probably going to die out pretty fast, because, I mean, it's one merchant in a completely unpopulated area, or with a very minimal population. Now, let's do a new country time. I mean, why not? At this point, nothing interesting is going to really happen anyway, considering it's just going to be the Reds struggling to expand overall. Okay. Who is it? I can't read those. Uganda. Now that's pretty interesting. I have horrible memory about African countries. I know basically everything else but African countries, I'll be honest. Uganda was somewhere over here, I'm pretty sure. Southern one, here. Around here, that works too. So, new civilization time. It's gonna be orange. So, they also start out pretty small, as so does the red country. But they swiftly expand to coastlines, as they don't really like land much, considering farming. I'm so sorry if that was loud, but yes, they haven't really discovered much farming yet. But they're not really able to expand much, as they don't really specialize in it. They more so like just chilling, existing where they already reside. So, yeah, that's kind of an issue. But, hey, it's fine. Also, let's draft up a settlement real quick. Boop. Now, where are we gonna put it? In between these two, obviously. The more water, the closer the settlements are gonna be to that water, or if there's a vital trade route, then it's probably gonna go between two cities. That's basically my only rules for cities. Rules, not ruse. But yeah, that's basically it for this. And the Ugandans, I'm just gonna refer to them as the Ugandans or Orange Team. They just keep expanding outwards. They don't really have much else they can do. Considering currency, probably not a thing yet, or in very minimal amounts, considering it's basically before the ancient times even. Well, basically in the ancient times at this point, I guess. We could already count currency as a thing, but it's basically very new, so there's not really going to be much of it. So, Ugandans go south, they find more water. Ugandans happy. That's basically it. And they just keep on doing that. And eventually, I'd like to assume that they probably found out agriculture by now. Now, the only region the Ugandans have actually claimed this is because these suckers over here that went down here took a little bit of a wrong turn. Now, they were going to turn back, but they turned a little bit to here. And by that, I mean like more than 45 degrees the wrong way. But basically, they had a little bit of a twist and tumble going like this. They also claimed a little bit of this too, yeah. But yeah, they basically had a little bit of a twist and tumble, ended up over here, and decided to just keep going up. And they eventually reach civilization. So this is now theirs. I mean, if it's an encirclement, then I'd like to count it. So yeah, but there's basically nobody living here. If we do population density, which I'm too lazy to do right now, it would be pretty low. So yeah, that's basically Uganda. Now, should we do a new nation here? Yes. Am I gonna do it now? Yes. Have I thought of where? Obviously not. Probably down here, actually, in this underpopulated area. So this is gonna be Uganda number 2. I feel like that's not supposed to do that, but we'll survive. Whatever. I don't really care that much anyway. But yeah, they're gonna go along the coast, here and there, occupying all of this. And of course, they avoid forests. Lots. I like this little patch of forests here, and the fact that Uganda's right next to it. That's pretty peak. But yeah, now let's check this out once again. Give me something in Asia. Please, pretty please, give me something in Asia. Oh, it's in Europe. Oh, it's Yemen. Oh, it is in Asia. Oh, thank you, country picker wheel. So it's gonna be Yemen. Now, it's gonna be a relatively small nation because the rest of them are also small, so it would only be fair. So, these don't look too different. Yeah, let's do this bright teal color. Let's do these kinds of establishment borders. You know what? Nah, Control Y. Instead, let's do coast. Right here. Because why not? That is pro reference. I mean, to be fair, it's not that far away from where he started it. So. Yemen immediately goes along the coasts because agriculture is basically non-existent, as they're kind of in a desert and they're kind of poor. Well, it's a tribe. What do you expect? Not gonna lie, they're not. Oh boy, they're not exactly gonna be rich. Oh my God, what's going on? Oh, it's probably just a flaw on my end. Wait, what? Oh, finally it fixed itself. I think it was just a small issue, but whatever. Yeah, they just keep on going. They reach about here until they eventually just stop. But they decide to go through here, going through a little bit of what looks like to be a pretty rough desert. Until eventually they just reach the pretty light-looking sands, which is where they're gonna thrive a little bit more because it's more flat and not as hard to traverse. But yeah, the Yemen population has been kind of spread very thin, so they decide to huddle around here, and we're gonna do settlement time. Where should we put it this time? Where they started. Boop. Okay, so this is the world so far. We have 6 countries. Now, I think this is about where we'll end it. I don't really have any more ideas for countries or expansion or stuff like that. However, before I end it, we're gonna do one last country. Weirdly green Yemen. So, here's a split off of Yemen now. You may applaud my actions. But yeah, they just expand outwards and that's about it for them. New settlement? Yeah, new settlement. I'm so sorry that I haven't ended this video yet, but enjoy me just... Oh. Kinda dumb. Whatever. Anyways, goodbye. This was fun doing. I'm gonna do another one later. But for now, enjoy the video. I'm gonna be posting this 35 minutes. I think I'm gonna split this up a little. So, goodbye. See y'all later.